Over the last decade, I have focused on making work about protest. I'm really interested in event, reaction, and how people try and make their opposition to an event or a law or a political change visible in the public realm. And then how media images of huge rallies and demonstrations become something else. The images themselves become protests. So I've called this project Image as Protest, and for it I've made 4 new drawings. With these new works, I'm continuing to think about issues that relate directly to women. I've focused on women's safety and women's reproductive rights. So 2 of the images are drawn from the protest following the abduction and murder of Sarah Everard in London last March, and 2 are from huge protests in Poland that happened a year ago, opposing new draconian anti-abortion laws. I make lots of different kinds of work about protest. I've made works about Brexit, climate change, and Black Lives Matter. I work in monochrome using a hand-ground sumi ink, preferring to wash the colour from the world. And in this way, I make the images more graphic and hopefully more emotionally potent. I make works at very different scales, large paintings, pasted street works, and smaller detailed ink drawings. These drawings are for me the basis, the bedrock of my practice. While I make them, I think a lot about the event that has caused the protest. I wonder about the response that the original event has prompted and how to record it or remake it. So the image hopefully becomes something more than a straightforward rendition. I'm seeking an alchemy between the original event and my remaking of it. Materiality conjures up a transformational state. And this has to do with the ink, the solid ink, the way it's hand ground and mixed with water, the way it's saturated between greys and deep blacks, and the multiple tiny decisions that go into making the piece, how the brush is loaded with the ink, and how many times it touches the page before the ink runs out. Finally, at the end of the work, when the work is almost finished, I change some areas entirely, and pieces become pools and triangles of darkness, and this is really important for the final composition. These 2 images are from Warsaw in Poland, but they have a worldwide relevance. And it's useful to consider these images in relation to anniversaries. It's just over 2 years since the law has changed here in Northern Ireland related to abortion, yet in real terms, women still can't access the healthcare they need. And a year since these protests that I've documented in Poland. And of course, the law change in Texas has just been implemented, drawing worldwide attention. These issues are local to these places, but they're also universal. The second set of new works are reproductions of a helicopter view of the protest that moved through central London from Scotland Yard to Westminster the day after the Sarah Everard vigil on Clapham Common. This protest is small. It's not a huge crowd filling the streets, but rather is very dominated by the surrounding architecture and contained by lines of police. Looking at it from above, it looks bodily and fragile. It is both a protest and a vigil for the violent death of a young woman, and a protest about the relentlessly repetitive nature of these crimes. Between the death of Everard in March and 6 months later, Sabina Nessa in September, over 80 women were murdered in the UK. Of course, the final state of all these images exists in the eye of the viewer, in how they were received and looked at. Some will see a street scene, and others will see a representation of resistance. The image is ephemeral. It was real. It was just a split second, but floats through time, materials and optics, never really belonging to any of us.